Start button? No. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our continuing product management leadership series of webinars. My name is Roger Snyder. I'll introduce myself as well as our guest consultant in just a moment. Today, we are talking about how to champion the data and drive product strategy. So we have with us today Ken Feehan, who is a principal consultant and trainer at 280 Group. He's been a friend of mine for over 5 years now, and I am the VP of Products and Services at 280 Group. And my name is Roger Snyder. I've also been with 280 Group for over 5 years, and we're excited to be with you together to talk about this problem of the sea of data and what you do about it. But let's talk a few things first about administrative tasks. In order to continue to grow in your product management career, we recommend that you become part of a larger community, a group of folks that can help each other along the journey of becoming a great product professional. One opportunity for that is our product management leadership group on LinkedIn. We'll pop the link for that into the chat, and I encourage you to click that link and join it. You'll get access to the latest information from 280 Group, as well as a lot of information sharing and question sharing, where professionals can help each other and learn more about product management every day. Now, let's talk a little bit about webinar logistics. During the webinar, we want this to be interactive. So we want to be able to help you out with questions you have, and we'd love to be able to answer those questions along the way. We do keep some time for Q&A at the end, but if your question is particularly pertinent to the slide that's up, go ahead and enter it in and use that Q&A box. And I want to emphasize this. Please, chat is great. You can use that to talk amongst yourselves. But when you have a question, please put the question into the Q&A box, and that will allow me to see the questions as they're coming in, and I can kind of cue Ken in order to say, hey, let's talk about this particular question at this time. If I don't answer your question right away, we will reserve time at the end to answer questions. And I'll even invite you to unmute and ask your question live so we can have more of a conversation. Then I want to answer some popular questions. The most popular one is, hey, can I watch this webinar later? And the answer is yes. When you register for the webinar, you provided us with your email address, and so we will send you a follow-up email after the webinar that includes a link to this webinar recording. Another popular question is, hey, can I get a copy of these slides? Well, unfortunately, these slides contain copyrighted material, and so we don't distribute a copy of the slides, but we do distribute the recording, so we encourage you to go back and use that recording as a resource. All right, let me give you just a quick overview of 280 Group, and then I can turn things over to Ken, who will take us into the main conversation. If you're not familiar with 280 Group, our whole mission, our whole purpose in being is to empower product professionals with the knowledge and tools to build products that matter to your customers, products that matter to your business success, and products that matter to you as a product professional. Check out 280group.com for more information about all the things we do to enable you to be more successful in your career. And this next slide kind of shows you a quick diagram of all these various options. And I want to emphasize that unlike many other consulting firms, all we do is focus on the product professional. So we provide services of many different kinds, and they're all focused on helping product managers, product marketing managers, product leaders, product owners get better at their craft and become more effective and successful. So again, check out 280group.com for more information. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ken, and Ken wants to get right into engaging with the audience. So take it away, Ken.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending upon where you are. We have a quick survey for you. We would like to potentially you to answer the following question: does your company gather important information from product usage, from the process of your customers using your product? Do you have aggregate data coming back to you to tell you how that's going? The answers here are yes, no, or we intend to. If you pick the answer that works most closely for you, that would be great. Please go ahead and pick and choose to answer the question.
Pretty straightforward question, certainly. And we hope you're honest about this too, because we really want to know where are you all on this journey of understanding in terms of using product usage information.
Fantastic. Let's see, we've got some answers back here. We've got 54% say yes. Fantastic. That means that you're here to get more than the basics. That's great. No is 13%, and the intention item is 33%. So we've got 2/3 of the team here interested in doing data today or in the immediate short term here. That's great information. Thank you, guys. Roger, what kind of information do we gather here at the 280 group?
Oh, interesting question. Well, we do all kinds of gathering of information. Actually, we monitor our web analytics in great detail, watching, for example, the customer journey, right? So we use a funnel to track how many people visit the site, how long do people stay on a particular page, what's the click-through rate to go down into more depth, how many people download our syllabi for our various courses. And of course, we also track our e-commerce purchase flow. So how many people look at a product page and say, oh, I'd like to sign up for that. And then when they see the price and see more information about the product, how many then click through and actually add it to the cart. And of course, we also look at cart abandonment rates as well. So there's a number of different things that we look at in terms of a website. We also look at data from our courses. We look at our survey results so that we understand how effective our course is, both in terms of the course material as well as our instructors, so that we're constantly looking for opportunities to improve. In particular, I like to look at the verbatims, the qualitative data, if you will, of the text that people write into the fill-in boxes, so that we get more details about, okay, how is there a trend here? We consistently see people not interested in, or they want more information about certain different kinds of topics.
Hey, fantastic. And Roger, I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to put the whole webinar back on your shoulders, but how has data changed your staff meetings?
How has data changed? Oh, well, so we have a dashboard, right? And we track that dashboard on a weekly basis. And with that dashboard, we are tracking, and there's two sets of data, right? There's kind of data like we're looking at with our webinar data, like I was just talking about a moment ago, but there's also our OKRs and our KPIs where we set goals every quarter, right? How much revenue do we want to generate from e-commerce? How many leads do we want to generate? How many copies of particular products do we want to sell? And then we are tracking those on a weekly basis to see how are we doing getting towards the goals that we've set for that quarter.
So 3 years ago, staff meetings were kind of in analog situations, but since then, your meetings have really gone digital, right? It's all about the performance of the numbers, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It's
Excellent.
been an enormous amount of work and an enormous evolution, but I'm really excited about where we've gotten to now.
Fantastic. Okay, so when we talk about this desire to be data focused at the 280 group, we're not just telling other people what to do. It's actually part of our journey too. And Roger's right smack dab in the middle of that. Fantastic. Okay, let's go ahead and continue here. Let's go ahead and cover this first topic here. First of all kinds of companies use and collect data in order to deal with product strategies. I've got a continuum here. On the left-hand side, we've got business to consumer companies. In the middle, I've got companies that are business to consumer companies. And on the far right, we've got business to business. The one thing that all of these companies share in common is that they all have a huge focus upon the use of data in order to track the user satisfaction and success of their particular product here. It's kind of interesting. You know, we have everything up here from AWS and Salesforce, companies that were born in the digital age, all the way back to UPS, Disney, and the United States Postal Service. If you actually double click on some of these companies, Disney, the United States Postal Service, and UPS, it becomes really obvious that they've transformed who they are based upon the using of data. I haven't been to Disneyland in about 10 years, but I'm told by my adult children that you're walking around with your mobile phone in your hand, finding rides that have slow queues in them. I track packages from warehouses to my house, and I know where the truck is for UPS. These companies are embracing data and using data to make their products better. So they are the inspiration for us. So if somebody at your company tells you that, you know, we're not the right kind of company to use data, please pull out the example that the United States Postal Service, the most regressive company probably in the entire world, is truly much better because they've embraced data. So want to keep that conversation going on here. The other capability of data is that data actually makes your voice as a product manager more powerful, more impactful at the type of company that's going on here. If you're sitting around a conference room and, there's 10 people inside the conference room and you're there sitting next to, user interface designers and engineers and marketing people, you're just another opinion at the particular table here, unless you're bringing data to the table. Hey, instead of talking about the fact, I think we should do something, you can come back and you can say, hey, 80% of our customers are getting stuck on this problem, or our close rate of our target customers is lower than it should be. If you are the product manager who's acting upon data, you are heard more at the company. It's impossible to ignore someone who is focused upon data as far as making their metrics go. And so we want you to be heard. A famous quote from a famous entrepreneur and a 90s company extraordinaire here in Silicon Valley was Jim Barksdale, who is the CEO of a company called Netscape that was the browser before Internet Explorer. Jim would be inside a room with a bunch of people and he'd say, okay, hey, anybody have data here? And if you don't have data, then note we just have opinions. And if we just have opinions, let's go with mine. Famous quote, truism, and an opportunity for people with product management backgrounds to make their voices heard. See what's going on here.
Yeah, this is one of those areas that, as I've led product management teams in the past, and my product managers will come to me and complain about how they're not being listened to. The number one response I gave them was, do you have data to back up the position that you're taking? And if not, let's go get it. Because that is absolutely the lifeblood of being an effective product manager.
Absolutely. And it's a way to actually go toe to toe with senior people at your company. It's a way to talk about and to have conversations that really matter. Okay, digging into data, one of the first things that you usually hear after data, you usually begin to hear the words OKR and KPI. And OKR and KPIs at some companies get mashed together and they sort of mean the same thing. Some companies adopt KPIs but don't adopt OKRs. What I wanted to do was to present just a classic presentation of how OKRs work and how KPIs work and how they don't overlap, how they are actually designed to actually complement each other. OKRs in particular, I associate with Google. I think they existed before Google, but the company that really turned OKRs on to the scene over the past 20 years, to me, has been Google. KPIs, I've heard it many other companies, but that would work out here. OKRs stand for objectives and key results, and KPIs stand for key performance indicators. And the way that we teach this generally is, let's talk about OKRs. OKRs are meant to be closely aligned to your strategy. What are you trying to accomplish? Where's home plate? When we're successful, what does success look like? So we want you to potentially establish objectives and key results as some moment in the future where you've been desired to be successful. Maybe this is a revenue target. Maybe this is a number of users using your platform. Maybe this is a net promoter score for your particular customers, but OKRs are meant to be aspirational. This is where we want to go to in classic sense presentations. And KPIs are those snapshots in time about how you are progressing from where you started to where it is you're trying to get your goal. So the key performance results would be at the end of each month, you take a snapshot. How is the net promoter score? Or how are we doing on revenue? Or how are we doing on customer satisfaction? And the OKR is over the horizon. Again, many companies that I've run into as a consultant and a trainer define these things slightly differently, and some even mush them together, call themselves the same things, but we classically think that they are different, and that we set them up to be OKRs are strategy related. Where do we want to get to? And KPIs are those where the milestones along the particular set of way here.
Absolutely. Like OKRs are your goals. KPIs are how you're measuring progress towards those goals.
Exactly. Well said, Roger. Companies that use data effectively, generally speaking, take snapshots of data and have OKRs and KPIs for each of the three sections of the product lifestyle that's in here. There would be one set of OKRs and KPIs for what it means to acquire a customer. How long does it take to acquire a customer? How much money does it cost us to bring a new customer on board? How long does it take? There's a set of data associated with acquiring customers that can be managed and tracked, and that works out fine. Next up is retaining customers. What we want to do is to figure out how to get customers to renew our product every year. If we're in a subscription-based business, this works beautifully. How many people renew at the end of the year and don't even think twice about it? Retaining those customers and retaining those metrics about that is stuff we'll talk about here, but we can definitely associate the fact that if customers use our product deeply and richly throughout the year, we will be more confident that at the end of the year they are likely to renew. If they're paying their bills on time, but we see their product usage is a minute a month, we can be pretty sure through that interpretation that those users are going to have trouble renewing at the end of the particular year because they're simply not getting the value out of this particular situation.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
The third category that product managers focus upon is how to best monetize our particular customers. So we've acquired a customer, fantastic. We've got them here. We have retained them. They've been with us for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months to see what's going on here. What we'd like to do as a product manager is to have a whole nother set of data attributes to say, okay, when customers are satisfied with our basic product, how likely are they to upgrade to additional goods and services from us and to become a bigger customer for us, particular situation? Excuse me. This monetizing customers, again, the thing that I want you to remember is we break this up into 3 pieces and we have metrics for each of them. And as a product manager, I want each of these 3 pieces to be working in unit. So I want to have a set of metrics for acquiring customers. What does it take? How long does it take? For retention of customers, this is how much do people use the product? How much do they share? How much value do they associated with it? And then the third section is monetized. At the 280 group, you'll notice that at the end of this particular webinar, we're going to have a call to action for some other item that you might want to do that. That is a monetization customization. Monetization of customers that is absolutely a part of our wheel here at the 280 group here. It doesn't mean we're trying to reach into your wallet and take your wallet. It means that we just simply want you to know that there's more goods and services. If you're satisfied with the things that the company's doing for you, you might be interested in buying more things from them. It's value based. It's not actually anything more scary than that.
Right.
KPIs measure business success. Key performance indicators are focused upon things that happen inside of the business. And these information metrics come back to us so that we can make business decisions. We can decide what levers should we pull based upon the key performance indicators coming back from our customer acquisition method. Maybe we had budgeted that a cost of a new customer was going to be $700 next year. And throughout the particular year, we're noticing that the cost of our customers is actually $800 through this particular situation. That's data that comes in. We've got to sit down. We've got to decide what to do about that. We've got to figure out what is happening that's making the cost be up a little bit higher. Excuse me, everyone. I'm fighting something here. And work in order to make that metric work back down to the point where we accomplish our budget and our customer budgets numbers safely.
Right.
These numbers come back, and from that we want to make decisions about what we want to increase, what we want to step on the accelerator for, and what we want to step on the brake for. Roger, please talk for a second.
Yeah. So back when I was working in the wireless industry, my customers were wireless carriers. And it was quite eye-opening for them to share their data with us as we were trying to help them with customer loyalty. And they pointed out that in the early years of wireless, the reason they had these 12 and 24-month contracts was they were measuring the cost of acquisition of a customer. And the cost of acquisition back in the day was nearly $800. And so in order to at least break even on, say, an $80 average monthly bill, which back then was more reasonable, these days they're considerably lower. But back then at $80, that meant 10 months had to go by before you just broke even on the cost of acquisition of that customer. It wasn't until months 11 and 12 that you were into the black. And so with a 12-month minimum contract, they were really only going to get 2 months of profit before that particular subscriber could then switch to a different wireless carrier. I'm sure the economics have changed considerably since the time I had this data briefing, but it was quite an eye opener that this was crucial to the success of the business, to understand this cost of acquisition and how long it was going to take to pay back that cost and actually become profitable.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Thanks for covering there. Perfect. So we have three categories of product area that we're looking to invest in. One is acquisition. The second is usage, renewal. And the third is monetization. We would have target goals for each of those particular situations, and we would be monitoring the results of each quarter's structure against those particular goals here, and we would pull different levels. If during the renewal portion of our process, we noticed that customers were not using new features, we would potentially market those features to users through the website and potentially through the application itself. If we were finding out that we were not monetizing according to budget, then we would potentially find ways to make to change our offerings to customers in order to try to get them online here. The data comes back and it's meant to help us make smarter decisions about using resources and working with customers here. It's not about just collecting data. It's actually using that data in order to be smart and moving forward on this.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay, time for the second quiz. The second quiz is closely related to the first one, but it is subtly different. And the quiz question is: does your company act upon the data that's collected from your product usage? So we had many customers come back and say yes, or that you intended to. Now the question is if you did say yes, then would you please let us know about whether or not you act upon the information that's coming back from your data metrics?
Right, and sometimes this is a crawl, walk, run sort of evolution, right? Where if you're not even collecting the data, okay, let's get that data going, right? And start collecting it. But you've got to look forward to, well, what decisions do I want to be able to make based on this data? And that goes back to these three categories of KPIs that you're going to want to be able to track. So you don't blindly dive into like, I'm just going to gather a lot of data. You've got to think about what are the KPIs that I want to be able to measure, and therefore identify which data am I going to start tracking. And then once you have enough of that data, how do I then start making decisions, taking action based on that data?
Fantastic. Excellent. Okay, so we have 42% of the question that says yes. The data comes back and they act upon it and change their plans. 16% say no, and they intend to visit 42%. So still a vast majority of the users are intending to or already using data in order to make this happen. Roger, this is a healthy number. Hey, anything that you can call out from your days as our marketing VP about how we would adjust to data that's coming back?
Oh, sure. Right. So a couple of things that we have done is we've looked at, for example, email as one of our marketing campaign techniques, right? That's a channel, if you will. And a few months back, last year, in fact, we looked and saw that while our email open rates were really high, the click-through rates were dropping. And so we decided that we needed to start doing some A/B testing as a result of that. So first, we already had the data. We were looking at it, and as a result of seeing that our click-through rates were dropping, we were like, okay, it's time for us to conduct even more experiments, right? So then we decided to do an A/B test on our next newsletter, where we send a newsletter out to over 40,000 people every month. And we want it to be useful, but we also want to be able to get some follow-up actions, right? So we did an A/B test if we went out with a new format of that newsletter, right, with some changes in two different ways, and then measured, well, which of the two new formats that we tried was more successful in getting folks to follow up and come to our website and look at some more of the resources that we offer. And after running that test, we did it, I think, actually 2 months in a row. And once we did that, we then chose the winner of which of these particular formats of our email was more successful, and then made that the email that we would use going forward. We're getting even more dynamic now with that, where we will start a campaign and run an ad for a couple of days, see which ad is doing better, and then immediately choose which ad are we going to now run all the time as a result of that. So there's different time frames too for how quickly you're going to take action on these things. Some of them require quite a bit of time. Some of them, after a few days of gathering data, you're ready to pull the trigger.
Roger, that's fascinating. Hey, I want to follow up on that and kind of go off script a little bit here. You were representing the marketing team, the digital marketing team, as you did that. What role would you want a product manager to play in that situations? Would you want the product manager to know what your cost of acquisition was, or that your open rate was, and to be asking you questions about that? Or are they supposed to get in the work and do themselves? How should a product manager interface with an event going on for their product inside of a digital marketing campaign?
Yeah, they've got to be at the table for sure, right? This is dynamic information, particularly for the decisions that you're making more quickly. You want to have the product manager be like, if we're running an ad for a particular product, we want to be able to give that product manager feedback on which messages seem to land more effectively. And that's data right there in terms of like, oh, okay, which message is more important, and therefore which of those benefits that the product provides is probably more important, right? And with that understanding of the benefit that was more valuable versus the benefit that was less valuable, where are you going to invest next in your feature development to either amp up the benefit that was more successful, or figure out how do I make that benefit that wasn't so successful better at being successful? So you've got, and that's the hard decision of product management, is like, where do I then invest my really precious and limited resources to better improve my product, right? So that is a big part of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that interface point between the product management team and the digital marketing team. It's intimidating for a lot of product managers that I run into, but going in there and saying, hey, we're supposed to bring up, 2,000 new customers this quarter, and we're supposed to do it at an average customer acquisition price of, $250. It's perfectly okay for the product manager to be meeting with the team on a regular basis saying, hey, how are we doing according to those metrics? Do I need to increase the budget? Do I need to change the messaging? You're not going to be, as a product manager, doing the digital marketing work, but there's some data handles that you want to hold on to, that you want to track towards.
And another feed forward aspect of that is the way we choose the A/B tests to run are based on what the product manager told us were the key value propositions to begin with, right? So the product manager is also feeding into these tests with ideas about, this should be the major value proposition that you're emphasizing, and this is the secondary one, or even more detailed, more finally, for our B2C clientele, this is the value proposition. For our B2B clientele, this is the value proposition, right? So all of that is a conversation that's happening over and over again between product management and product marketing and marketing, for sure. Fantastic. And I also want to take a moment here to pause and invite folks to ask questions. So we would love to be able to have some interactivity during the webinar. So throw your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll take a look at those as we're going through the material.
Fantastic, Roger. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about the fact that in the world of life, there are good metrics, there are good KPIs, and there are bad KPIs. So good KPIs, good data that flows back to you as the product manager, they answer critical questions. They measure things that matter to your company. They are placeholders, or they're markers for value being created at your particular company here. They're comparative, they are understandable, they're human-formed, and they're actionable. They're meant to cause change here. Good metrics are true indicators of value increasing at your particular company. I'll just tell you a quick story about a bad metric that was the heart and soul of a startup that I worked at 20 years ago. We had a startup that I was working at as the director of marketing 20 years ago. We were doing something similar to what Skype is today. And 20 years ago, it was much more complex, but we were trying to grow from nothing to something. And the metric that we had latched onto that was valuable to us is how many people over the course of a 24-hour period download our application. Okay. So during the first 2 months, 3 months of the particular product, we were getting on average about 10,000 users a day downloading the application and using it. And during those first 2 or 3 months, that was probably a good indicator, because traffic, it was difficult to understand truly the model of this. We were making decisions. Do we do more marketing? Do we do less marketing based upon how many people we're averaging overnight to potentially come into this particular situations? But we held on to that metric, which was really valuable during months 1, 2, and 3 through the first year. And by the end of the first year, we were still tracking, yes, we're downloading, 11,327 users last night, and that's really terrific. But it was not correlating to value at the company, because we were not getting a corresponding increase of the average user's minutes going up over time. So we were using a metric which was downloads. and there was a hole in the bucket. And the hole in the bucket is that 96% of the people who downloaded the application used it less than twice.
Oh man.
So we were in a situations where we were going to the board, we were saying, congratulations, our metrics look terrific. The value of the company was not increasing. And we weren't, and most importantly, we were not fixing the hole in the bucket because it was not exposed. Right. So good metrics are things that are variables that truly comport to customer value and customer benefits here. And bad metrics are just as easy to come by. And sometimes a good metric for a couple of months turns into a bad metric overall and hides things. As a product manager, you have to be curious about these things. You can't accept them on face value. You have to keep digging into it. How is this metric that we're using of daily downloads or of mean average usage time of the average user? You need to keep your eye on those things, or else these metrics will actually go sideways on you to make it happen here. The market did not reward my company for missing that particular metric on usage here. Let's go ahead and ask poll number 3 here. Poll number 3 is what product KPIs do you use? And this is in a check one box or check more boxes. We would like to know what KPIs do you have built into your particular product? Is it daily or monthly active users? Is it session frequency? Is it session duration? Is it feature usage? Is it something else? Or of course, we don't measure our products at this level yet. If you guys can please take a second, check on, sorry, it is a single choice box. So there's a mismatch between the slide and this. You please pick the one item as a radio button that makes the most correct answer for you. What product KPIs do you use?
Yeah. I'll be right back. I'm gonna let the cat out.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
If I didn't let him out soon, he would, his tail would be in my face.
Well, that's at least you don't have a dog.
No, the dog's at school today. Yeah, sorry, this was not a multi. I should have clicked multi.
Not a problem. We're good. I like more precise answers anyway. Excellent. Please wrap this up. Please choose the item that makes the most sense. We have closed the poll. Excellent. We have daily monthly active users is the second most feature usage. We have session frequency is small, session duration is small. Feature usage is the winner here. Feature usage is almost is more than a third. That is great news to hear. That means that your team is embracing the idea of using data. We have other is 9%, and we don't measure usage in our products. So interesting situation. I like these answers here. Feature usage I think is great. I work very closely with the teams that I do consulting with in order to say, if you're putting out a new feature for your users, make sure that you can figure out a way to measure whether or not people are actually using it or not. Right. So I got some people doing best behaviors here.
The next step there on feature usage then is to track, a user path for a task, right? If there's a 5-step sequence that you have to follow to get to the end, is there some step in those 5, like step 3, for example, where they're abandoning that step, and why is that happening, right? So it's good to get that feature usage going, but then you want to look at the paths that are used to accomplish a task that hopefully derives a benefit. And then if you can find out why they aren't completing that, that's going to help you or hopefully address that problem and increase that success at the end of the rainbow, right? For us, it's the checkout on our website and the actual purchase, right? And whatever is getting in the way of getting to that final step is something that you want to address. For the folks that aren't measuring product usage, I hope that this is going to help folks get a better understanding of what are the things I should be measuring, and be thinking about this, this connection between the business metric and the product KPI, right? To give our example, on our private business, our ultimate goal is to transform the product management team to be a more effective team at the organization that we're working with. So we look at metrics of we try to track now, how are we transforming that team? How effective is the end result for that team? And what do we need to do better along the way in order to make that transformation more likely and more effective? So those are things that we're in the process of upping our game and understanding more as we go forward.
Exactly. Roger, the story that I'm going to tell about this feature usage is was recently working with a client who introduced a new feature about sharing a data summary with other people at the company. You know, as I'm looking at my situations, I'm seeing data that comes in here. I think this is really interesting. Hey, I want to share it with the person over in marketing, or I want to share it with the person in engineering. And so you could take a snapshot of what you were doing and send it over to them. They were on top of this, but what we wanted to do was to track how many people actually used the share feature. So that was one metric. And then how satisfied were the customers who did use the new share a data summary feature from this. And we found out that, the satisfaction was huge. You know, it was like 75% of the people who used the feature loved it, but only 8% of the people were actually finding the feature in the user interface and actually using it. So when that flew back to us, we could potentially say, okay, the feature's right on, but we need to tell more people about it. And so we got to highlight this, send out emails, do a webinar on the fact that this feature had an on-ramp to it that was potentially going to work out well here. So that was my story about how to use feature sessions in order to make this happen here. Just have that data flow back to you and be ready to act from it.
Great.
Excellent. Okay. You're looking to create good metrics, and you're looking for things that move the needle for your customers. How are they using the product? What features are they using most often? What are they not using? What do they find valuable? How satisfied are they with these situations? This is the strategy that should be guiding you towards analytics. When your engineers come up to you, God bless engineers, I love engineers, they'll come up to you and they say, I think I want to measure this X, Y, and Z thing, and say, okay, that's great, but can we also measure A, B, and C? So just recognize that your engineer friends want to measure things that matter to them. You just also want to measure things that matter to you. And you want to be measuring the things that move the needle for customers. Where are they happy? Where are they unhappy?
Yes.
And now I'm going to drop into some content that's specifically out of our digital product management course, which is a product of the 280 group. And I wanted to just kind of give you a summary as to the intelligence that's in this DPM course. We talk about collecting information from customer usage in these 6 categories. The depth at which they go into the product and use the product. Many customers use very thin layer of features at the top. Other users get the entire depth of this. Next up is breadth. How wide does this work? The frequency that they use the application. How many times a day or how many times a week do they launch into the application? What paths or funnels do they come in? What tasks are they trying to do from the application? What's their sentiment about the product? Incredibly important to know whether or not when they open up your application, they have a smile on my face, or whether they're frowning on the particular face here. And then lastly, feedback. How do you get this information back here?
Right.
If anybody comes back to you and says, hey, we've got a metric for usage, just be on the lookout. That's a nonsensical metric. The data app points that you actually need and are looking for are actually usually classified as part of these 6.
Double click, right? When they say usage, ask the question.
Tell me a little more, please. Tell me more.
Yeah. So we got a question from the audience that, Ken, if you back up a slide, I'd love to take that question now. And let's see, Hannah, if I can ask you to unmute, you can ask your question of Ken and I.
Hi, Hannah.
Can you hear us? Here, allow to talk. There we go. That's my responsibility.
Hello,
hi, Hannah.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Hannah. Yes, we can.
Hi, yes. So my question was, what tools do you use to get product data, or how do you start in the process of gathering product data other than analog or traditional methods like surveys or asking users?
Roger, I'm going to take I see kind of 2 questions in there. One of which is tools. As far as tools, the tools that I usually expect product managers to start using if they've never done data analytics before is I usually tell them to start with Google Analytics. Google has free or low-cost tools for developers to put counters inside of their applications to have that information flow back. Now, if your team is doing this really well, in 6, 9, or 12 months, your team is probably going to want to outgrow Google, and they're probably going to want to go to some of the more purposeful development-based tools. And if you Google KPI tracking tools, or if you Google my favorite, who's the competitor to Google Analytics, you will get an entire list of third parties that do a very wonderful job on this particular situation here. Roger, do you have any thoughts on tools?
Yeah, so a few that I've used in the past, App Annie is one of them. Flurry is another. I'm forgetting the third one that I used to use, but App Annie and Flurry are two good ones that are for embedding into an actual mobile app experience. I believe Flurry now actually has a web interface as well for website work or for SaaS applications. Those are two good ones that I've used in the past. There are plenty, so I would also encourage you to use Ken's recommendation. So do a Google search on App Annie competitors and see who maybe the latest competitors are in those spaces. But those are two. Another one, Amplitude is another one. There's another category of these kinds that are actually all about now not just measuring the data in the background where the user doesn't know about it, but also working on actually asking the question of users, how are you feeling about this experience here at that moment? Or we noticed you're having a problem here. Can you tell us why? So Amplitude is another example of one of those where they will actually inject into your app the ability to ask a single question every once in a while as the user is going through the user experience. So check out Amplitude and check out competitors of Amplitude as well for that style of user analytics.
Roger, how do we do it at the 280 Group? Is it a part of a service that we buy?
Yeah, using Google Analytics. We also we do heat maps as well. And all of a sudden, I can't remember the name of the heat map application, but there's several that we're using on our website to track all the way through. So yeah, we do use goals that we set in Google Analytics as a major way we do things there. And then we also do the heat maps. And all of a sudden, I can't remember the name of the heat map app.
Excellent. Been there, done that. Hannah, I think you're still online here. The second half of your question was how do you get started? Do you do user surveys or put analytics inside the application? Is that where you're going, and are you still online?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes,
Was that the second half of your question?
Yep, more so about starting the process in general. We are very new to this, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, no, excellent. That's perfect. Hey, the last slide of the presentation, which I'll get to in about 10 minutes, says that I recommend that you get together with your team and you think about what a data dashboard would look like that you could put up inside of the executive suite at your company. Now, you're not going to have answers to all of these things. You're not going to know the answers to these things. But if you sit down with your engineering team and your UX team and your data team and you say, hey, what should be on our data dashboard? And I'll give you some ideas about what should be there. I bet you will start inspiring your company pretty quickly to figure out how it is to go about taking the first steps to see what's happened here. Because the data dashboard is kind of the the sign of success. It's where you're trying to drive to. It's the OKRs of this particular situations. It's where you want to get to.
Yeah, so start with that end in mind and then work backwards to the data you need to track in order to be able to populate that dashboard.
Exactly. And Hannah, I did also hear you say user surveys and in-application tracking. And I got to tell you, the answer is both.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah. Good luck on your journey.
Yep. So Ken, one more question. Ahmed had a question as well for older use cases. Ahmed, I think I've allowed you to speak if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, we manage a legacy application, which is a Windows application that's all on-prem, so don't have really quite the luxury that you would have with a kind of cloud solution. I wonder if you guys had any recommendations for tracking tools that could be embedded in our application that send us results.
And you're still making updates. You're still doing software updates to the on-prem application.
Yes, we are.
Then unless you're doing national security, I think you can potentially put use tracking information inside of these applications. Your intentions generally are above board. You're trying to figure out what features people are using, what part of the application they're getting value from. I would potentially be leaning into adopting and putting these kinds of data metrics and data counters inside these applications, whether they're on-prem or in the cloud. I've run into a couple of companies who have problems with customers tracking that information. It's national security. was one of the clients that I was working on. And I would have to say, I come back is that I would always have a conversation, even with difficult governmental clients, saying, the reason we're capturing this data is so that we know what features are valuable to our users. We're trying to make the application better suited to your needs here. And I'd like to just also point out that, there was a plane that disappeared in the Indian Ocean a couple of years ago. It's the Malaysia flight that we've never been able to find here. The last element of data that came from that particular plane was actually some kind of internal report from the General Electric engines that were on that particular plane. The last piece of data was not a radio transmission of a voice. The last data transmission was not some kind of call home. It was very specifically the incorporation of some kind of usage information into a very proprietary system, which was transmitted back to GE for the use of the engines. So I encourage people to do that and to use those particular items as guidelines.
So probably no off-the-shelf products. You just got to kind of roll your own kind of thing, right?
I'd start with Google Analytics, and I would put a couple of teasers in here in a development application that I've got running in the shop. But yeah, once it's up and running, I would start figuring out, when we introduced the new feature that everybody was clamoring for, did they use it?
Exactly. Thank you.
Good luck. All right, let's keep going. I know there's another question, but we'll hold that one to the Q&A.
Excellent. Thank you. Hey, I'm going to really go quickly through very common terms that people have for data analytics here. So I just want to go through the building blocks of this really quickly because I want to get a couple more minutes for time. First of all, these happen to be the revenue-related main data items that happen here. So let's go ahead and talk about each one of them. First one is called ACV, which is the annual contract value. If you are a digital company and you are working with users in the areas of subscriptions, you can calculate the annual contract value of your particular users using a very straightforward formula. Knowing what the annual contract value is helps you make investments towards how much is it going to cost you to grow, how much is it going to cost you to bring additional users on board. ACV is a big building block that is kind of expected to know what's going on. Next metric up is called ARR or MRR. It's annual recurring revenue or monthly recurring revenue from this particular situations. This is meant to capture all revenue billed in a normalized amount, either on the annual or monthly amount based upon what's happening with customers. Executives will talk about ARR is trending in the right direction, or we're not growing our ARR with the way we're going on here, and that would, of course, trigger actions to see what's happened here. ARR is a big one. Next up is the average revenue per account or average revenue per user. If I was a company like Salesforce and I sold 1,000 subscriptions to company Acme, I would know exactly how much revenue Acme sells to means to us. I would have a summarization of what Acme means to me as if I was Salesforce, but I would also potentially be able to track that information down to the user level. So it would be either to the account or to the user. In most business-to-business situations, it's usually per account. In many consumer items, it's usually actually to the user. See what's happened here. So that works out fine. Next up is something called lifetime value or LTV. This is a formula which is calculated with the help of your finance people based upon assumptions that your company is going to put through. That tells you how long the contract, how long the contract with the user will be available to this. An example here would be Netflix, and I would potentially, if I was Netflix, I would potentially want to figure out how or project how long customers will be subscribing my particular product before they fall off. And so I would want to calculate lifetime value of that situation. I'm going to come up with some expectations and some numbers, but the numbers are never going to make it so that the lifetime value is infinite. There's always going to be situations where we expect this contract to be in place for 10 years or 20 years. And we want to have a calculation for lifetime value to make sure that our marketing budgets and our product development efforts are driving us towards a higher lifetime value and a longer lifetime value associated with the particular customers. Okay, we've left the revenue building blocks here, and I wanted to quickly dive into two of the most valuable ones related to expenses associated with these particular products. I wanted to talk about customer acquisition costs and churn. These are two numbers probably that you have heard as product managers as you're on this journey. CAC or CAC is the average cost of convincing a customer to make a purchase. This number generally is more comprehensive than we would think as a product manager. This probably includes the cost of the website divided by the total numbers of users. It probably includes the cost of the sales team divided by the number of new users that are coming out here. Email campaigns, referral programs, anything that goes into the idea that you're trying to attract and bring people to your particular company is usually brought up through customer acquisition costs here. It's the sum of all expenses to see what's happened here. CAC is a very valuable number, and the number is always going to be larger than you think. It wouldn't at all be unlikely to think that your customer acquisition cost of a new customer it can be hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of dollars here. Just FYI, the number can be much larger than you expect because it is burdened with all of the costs associated with bringing that next customer online. Mm-hmm. Now that we've got a revenue model, lifetime value of the customers, and we have a customer acquisition cost model to see what's going on here, just to introduce some logic here to say that the lifetime value of a customer needs to be 3 times greater than the cost to acquire that customer in order to have a P&L that kind of works. If your customer acquisition cost is $1,000, but your lifetime value of the customers is $500, then you are throwing money into the wind here. So knowing what the ratio is between lifetime value and customer acquisition cost is good. And having 3x is potentially a real guideline there.
That's a great guideline.
Each business is different.
Right. My earlier example with wireless carriers showed that they were not getting to 3x, right, with even just a 12-month contract. Right. So that 12-month contract was a minimum, right? They had to at least get 2 months of profitability with a 12-month contract, but they were hoping for a much longer term relationship so they could get up to that 3x LTV.
Fantastic, Roger. Thank you. And then lastly, a word that we've all heard one way or the other, it's called churn. And churn is a metric that is used to track the number of subscribers who do not renew a contract or do not renew the particular versions of the product. Netflix had a terrible quarter last quarter. One of it was based upon the war in Ukraine. Netflix shut off Russia in that particular situations. But the other aspect is that they did not keep as many users as they expected. Their churn rate was higher than Wall Street expected, and they were punished greatly. Mm-hmm. So understanding what your churn rate is and managing to it and driving it towards being the lowest possible number can work out here. Remember, it's always easier to keep your customers. It's always less expensive to get your customers who are using your product today to renew than it is to acquire new customers. Your churn number should be as low as possible, and you should be focusing some product strategy upon making sure that customers have the lowest possible churn rate. Absolutely. Crucial success factor. Excellent. Hey, Hannah asked this question a little bit early. If your company is not embracing data, if they don't quite know where to start, what I would hope you would do is go to Google and Google data dashboards. And what I would like you to do is to come up with 5 or 6 graphs that look just like this. And then I would like you to call a meeting with your engineer manager and with your user experience people and with somebody from the digital team and your company, and that says, hey, let's start on a 6-month journey here. And the 6-month journey is going to take us to the point where at the end of that 6 months, we can put a dashboard in the executive suite that shows some key metrics and values associated with our particular customer. As a first step towards that goal, let's today spend 2 hours outlining what our data dashboard for the executive suite should look like that we want to post in 6 months. I've generally found that when you do a creative exercise like this, what could the data dashboard look like? I have incredibly positive responses from engineers and digital people saying, well, it needs to do this, and you need one that looks like this. And I just sit back and I just smile about the fact that they're actually doing the work for us. I'm not pulling them forward. I'm not asking them to do something that they don't want to do. When I challenge them with graphics and charges and say, where should we get to? Generally speaking, they come running along here. So my first step is recognize that we want to invest in this particular area, create some inspiration printouts of what data dashboards can look like, and then ask them to build out a cell that says, what should our data dashboard look like? And I generally find that people go crazy about this. I love that. I've used that successfully. And it's a trick that I product managers to do is sometimes when you ask people, they say no. But sometimes when you actually ask them to brainstorm with you or to teach you about what this should look like, generally speaking, they run like crazy and they decide to help you. Last slide before I hand this back to Roger. Many of the slides today, particularly the building blocks today, are actually from our digital product management class here at the 280 group. That course is available through our website. There's a snapshot of the website here. Roger, I'm plugging your stuff, but this product is available as a self-study class that you take at your own pace. This class is also offered as an instructor-led exercise where product people like me work with you one-on-one and in team formats, and we lecture some, and then we do workshops together to apply these techniques to things that you work on. And at the end of this, there is actually a certification to become a certified product manager from this process.
Great.
Roger?
So, yes. So as Ken just already did the plug for the digital management course, I appreciate that, Ken. You make my job a little bit easier. But it is all focused on digital product management, starting with this idea of what is it, how is it different to be a digital product manager, then moving into this idea that you need to be more about outcomes and not output. It isn't about how many releases you get out in a year. It is about how much value that you are delivering to your customers. And that value is what's going to increase monetization, is what's going to reduce your churn, right? So our DPM course is all about that, and we encourage you to sign up for that. And in fact, today we are launching a new sale that centers around our product management day. Product management really got its start back in the 30s, believe it or not, at Procter & Gamble. And that happened tomorrow, May 13th, back in the 30s. And so to celebrate the origins of product management, you can go to the next slide there, Ken, is our product management day sale. So everything like the digital product management course is now available at 15% off our normal prices. And that sale is open until May 23rd. We understand some of you work at companies where you have to go get permission before you can buy. So go check out the website, get the information you need in order to be able to prove that this would be a valuable course for you, and then come back and make this purchase at 15% off. All right, we're going to conduct our last poll, but we have a couple of questions that I want us to be able to answer in the last few minutes. So go ahead and launch that poll, Michelle. And while we're gathering data on how valuable you found today's webinar, let's answer questions. And I'm just going to read them this time, Ken. So in the interest of time, we have a question from Jung. And Jung asked, how can I start to unify customer data, say profile data and transactional data, if I have multiple applications, each independently collecting this data? Are there any off-the-shelf tools available that could help with this type of data collection and usage?
It's interesting. I don't necessarily know that that's a feature of an application, but I can imagine a world where, you know, product line A has a metric that's sort of like customer satisfaction, and product line B has a similar one, but it's not the same. I would think that that would be an effort that you would have to do as a product manager to try to get those to be like answers, so that you can roll that information into a dashboard the way that you're going to want. I'm sorry, Roger, I stepped on you.
Yeah, no problem. So I've had some experience with this where, you know, like you want to take web usage data and you want to take app usage data and combine the two, right? And there's several applications that do this for you. So check out Tableau, Tableau. Check out Microsoft Business Intelligence, check out Looker, right? All of those. And then again, just Google competitor for Looker, excuse me, Looker, the way you would think it'd be, and competitor for Tableau. And you'll get more of a list of these different style. These are applications that are intentionally designed to pull data from Google Analytics, to pull data from App Annie, to pull data from Flurry, bring it all together and allow you to start to measure like the customer journey across all these different app pieces or web experiences, whatever it might be, and then help you actually make some useful insights from this data. So Jung, I hope that helps. Check out Tableau and Looker in particular, Microsoft BI, Oracle has a tool as well. Salesforce even has one. So check those out. And then our next question is from Brooke. And Brooke asks a long question. Do you have recommendations for challenging the status quo metrics that leadership has become accustomed to? Well, I recently was asked to lend a hand to produce an enterprise metrics report, most of which is usage data. It prompted me to ask the question, who's looking at this data? Is it actually actionable? Which is great questions, Brooke. I'm glad you're already thinking about that, right? And I want to touch on the other indicators identified on your user engagement slide. But how do you get people to think more about those user engagement slides like breadth and depth instead of what maybe has been leadership's traditional take on metrics?
Boy, what a great question. So the idea summary here is that your company is collecting information and the executives begin to rely upon it. You know, they're looking at it, it's trending in the right direction. But you know that you need to do more. You know that you need to measure a new feature. It's coming up here. You know that you need to measure how satisfied customers are with new features here. It's risky, but I got to tell you, it's exactly the right thing to do. What I would do here is I would potentially be talking about how we're going to enhance metrics over the next 6 months and how we're going to potentially use it to measure customer satisfaction with a new feature that we're stepping out here. I would take the data metrics for the next feature release that you're going to have happen, and I would make them important metrics that use the categories that you're looking to measure, and then make it so that it gets added as part of the new feature look, and then eventually those will stick to your data dashboard. That's the tricks and the technique that I would do, is find the next release, put the metrics in the new release that you want, and then start reporting upon the new metrics. And maybe all the executives will look at you and say, well, why aren't we measuring net promoter score for our other product lines? So I would sneak that in based upon a new release. Roger, any thoughts?
Yeah, I like that approach. The other way I do it is look at a corporate objective, where that corporate objective to get there, the current metrics that leadership likes aren't going to help you figure out how to get there. And then find what are the metrics that you'd be needing to track in order to be able to get to that corporate goal, right? So start backwards from that OKR, using the terminology earlier, that is important to the company, and surface the kind of metrics that are going to help you measure progress towards that new goal if the existing metrics aren't going to get you there. And oftentimes they aren't. This is an evolving field for sure. So great question, Brooke. Thank you. So Ken, thank you so much for your expertise today. Very much appreciate it. If you pop up to the last slide here, we really appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy schedules to spend time with us today. We hope you found this useful, and check out 280group.com for more resources to help you in your product professional journey.
Thank you, Roger.
Take care. Bye, everyone.